You're tuned into the Advocai Health Podcast. We're here to talk about rare diseases, real people, and the ripple effects of change. Stories that move you, guests who challenge the norm, and vibes that keep it real. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the ASH Podcast. My name is Omar, and joining me today is our co-host Ali and a special guest. We have the pleasure of hosting our friend Haris here, who will briefly talk about a topic that frankly should be talked about way more, which is food security and its connection to health. So before we dive in, feel free to give our listeners a bit of intro and maybe background on your story.
Yeah, well, I mostly grew up in Calgary, a lot of my life, Calgary, Canada. But I was born in Pakistan and moved here when I was 7 years old. Grew up here, actually, and then went to the University of Calgary as well. Actually, from I took the same bus that I took to high school that I took to the University of Calgary. So I'd taken the same bus for like 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Which was a little depressing. So, and then COVID hit, of course, and then you're stuck at home. And then I did a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology at the University of Calgary. And then I did a Master of Public Policy, which I'm just finishing up right now. And then I'm going to be joining you, Omar, at Toronto Metropolitan University for med school, which is super exciting. The reason I decided to do the Master of Public Policy after kinesiology was because I was involved in a lot of different extracurricular opportunities, and a lot of it was around food security. So I just want to introduce some of those things first, so you can dive a little deeper into it later. One of the main things was zero food waste. And so Zero Food Waste is a food rescue nonprofit that started here in Calgary, but now exists in 5 other Canadian cities as well. And what we do is we rescue excess food from local businesses, and we redirect those to people who really need it, whether that's through foster shelters or directly to those in need. And then I also was involved with an on-campus club at the University of Calgary called Food Justice Now, and very similar mission. What we would do is we would cook that food the day before, and then we would just serve food to students. And there was like no limit on who could take the food, because we realized before COVID, food insecurity was super high. And then after COVID, it was astronomically high. I think the stat was like there was 3 in 5 people on the University of Calgary campus facing food insecurity during like the fall of 2020, which was like peak COVID, which is a lot of people. And I do want to clarify one thing about food security. Food security isn't always not having food. It can be not having access to nutritious food, not having access to culturally appropriate food, or not even having access to food generally. And so it encompasses a lot of things. And so, yes, it's a big issue. It doesn't mean that 3 in 5 people were not having access to food, but it's basically like the university ramen diet for a lot of students. Like, you can't live on ramen alone. And so that's why food insecurity was such a big issue. And that was important for me to address. We can dive deeper into why, though, later.
Oh, that's incredible. Thanks for that background. Also, yeah, it's another Pakistani.
Representation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was also born in Pakistan, lived there for 14 years, and then moved to Canada.
Yeah.
I walked to my high school. I didn't bus though, but I took the same bus to university every day.
Damn! You guys know the experience. You know the experience, Ali.
I was lucky though. I lived on campus first year. These guys had to bus there and back, and I was just like, haha, sucks. I get to go on campus and sleep versus
Nice.
I'm having to wait for a bus and then go home. But thank you for sharing. I think definitely the point you made about food security was huge, because personally, I feel like even when we were younger and taught about food insecurity, the general idea was just the fact that, okay, they don't have access to food or food isn't available. So making that distinction is very important, because I feel like that's where people get things confused. But I know we said we kind of get into it, but do you have something that specifically sparked your passion for this type of work? Like maybe something that, you witnessed, or something that happened in your life personally, or just anything that could have caused this?
Yeah, well, growing up, when you're a new immigrant to a country, my parents are working and trying to basically get some of their education moved over here. In that process, though, we were low income for many years in Canada, and while we were low income, we faced food insecurity. And so we had limited consistent access to nutritious meals all the time, or oftentimes I overheard my parents like talking about like, how are we sorting this out, and it often became like a thing where like people in the Pakistani community would be supporting and helping us. And so at the same time, my dad was working at a grocery store, and they were having him throw away a lot of edible food. I remember like he brought me to work one day because we don't believe in babysitters, but babysitters exist. It's just not a very Pakistani thing to do. But he brought me to work, and he had to throw away a lot of food. And I asked him about it, and he's like, I just have to do this. Like they don't donate this food, nothing happens to it. It just has to go to the trash. But this was like perfectly edible food. It's not like this food should be thrown away. And so experiencing hunger at home, and at the same time, my dad had to throw away a lot of food. It just like really showed me that, these two things don't have to exist at the same time. And I didn't do anything about that for a long time until I was like later grown up, and we were talking with a family friend who owned a Cobb's Bread location. I don't know if you guys have Cobb's Bread in Ontario. It's a bakery store.
No, I don't think so. I've never heard of it personally. Omar?
No, but you got to open a chapter now. Now that
franchise.
Well, there was a Cobb's Bread location that a family friend owned, and we're chatting about it. And so when I was finishing up high school and going into my first year of university, me, my sister, and a friend of ours, we decided to do something about this issue that affected us years ago. Because if it affected us, it definitely still affects people to this day because nothing really changed. And I'm sure, honestly, it probably impacted more people at that future point than it did when we were experiencing food insecurity.
Yeah, I think definitely, with the work you guys have done is amazing, and the thought process you had was potentially true because we've seen in the past few years the price of food in Canada, especially healthy food. The inflation is outrageous here. It has been for the last 10 years in the government. Economy has been difficult, and a lot of people don't realize it. The people who don't have to face it and they take it for granted. I think to some extent I'm also maybe one of those people that lucky enough that I haven't tasted a lot in Canada. I did have to be careful about that when I was studying abroad because it was just me and I was in a foreign place and I was kind of just running through my savings. So I was trying to be really careful of what I was buying. So I know you mentioned the instant ramen noodles, bro. That was my lunch, dinner, breakfast. Like those were hitting different those days.
So I would challenge you and say that you did experience food insecurity, and it might not have been severe, but there was food insecurity there, right? Like I don't think anyone should ever have to worry about having access to nutritious food. Like you need food to live. Like I don't know, like also just growing up, I think you guys can probably relate to this, is like your parents probably instilled in the same value that like don't waste food. And also that everyone deserves to eat. It was like a basic thing where even like for me, I'm Muslim, and so during one of our Eid celebrations, we give a portion of a goat or a cow or a sheep to charity, and it's a big portion as well. And so it was always ingrained into us to like give back and give food, and food is love in my household, and so giving back to the community was my way of loving my community.
100%. I think, Omar, you probably grew up the same way. Like, I know I did. We would have, like, the house filled with food before. If, like, someone's coming over, we'd have as much as we can rather than have it less, right? Because you never want someone to feel like, they shouldn't take food when you're inviting them to your house. So that was definitely, like, a deep principle that my parents have had growing up.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that, I think having lived in different areas, I didn't grow up in Pakistan. I grew up like mainly in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East, but same thing, like, the Eid celebrations used to hit, and we used to talk about like how we used to give food around and everything, and like to our neighbors and stuff. And it makes sense. Like, I think the real point in our lives where I really understood what food insecurity was actually in school. Like, Ali, remember when we took the sustain courses? It was like when they talked about sustainable goals and stuff like that have, especially it's a huge conversation here in Canada. Like I didn't know how talked about it was on a policy level. So when we did those courses and I was trying to like look into it, I realized how big of a problem it was, especially when it was exacerbated during the COVID pandemic. And it's just been like getting worse and worse because of the inflation. So that brings me to a point about like talking about your background in kinesiology. Do you think that kind of shaped the way you saw food insecurity? Like, was there anything you learned in education that reinforced your efforts or your passion?
Yeah, like I mentioned, when Zero Food Waste started, it was me entering into university, entering into
Yeah.
kinesiology. While we were doing this work in the background, kinesiology was giving me a strong understanding of human health and physiology. And it was actually like you guys, I think, like taking nutrition classes, where like the click for food insecurity, like yes, you need food, but the click that hey, food is health and health is
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
really came into play because there's a direct link between poor nutrition, which causes chronic conditions like diabetes, hypertension, obesity. It leads to so many diseases and so many illnesses, or exacerbates them so much more. And that's not only to mention that there's also mental health effects as well. Like if you're not getting good nutrition, you're more prone to become anxious or depressed as well. And that's all linked back to nutrition. And so it was my nutrition class, shout out Dr. Raymer, to really connect those two pieces for me. And it made me understand that, food is more than just something like this concept that you just need to eat to survive. It basically molecularly, like biologically, it shapes like every aspect of your being. And when people aren't getting that, how can you ever get them to focus and study or give back to their community even? And so it was like social determinants, like food security is a social determinant of health, and addressing those is really essential for maintaining overall health of people and overall health of our communities, and just preventing illness too.
Yeah, that's a solid point. Can you tell me the name of the professor again? Because I kind of missed it.
Dr. Raymer. She's really awesome. Raylene Raymer.
Maybe
one of my friends,
get her next
she's
as a guest.
Yeah, shout out to her because she was really an awesome prof. And one of my friends, she's attending U Calgary Med. She did some research with her in her nutrition lab, and they're always releasing stronger links between nutrition and your health as well. And really looking at the gut microbiome. So encourage people to check out their local nutrition professors to get involved in that type of research.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like the people around you, the profs you have in the courses, how they teach also makes a huge difference on like what you learn. And you've obviously taken some initiatives and you've created these initiatives in your life to help discuss this problem. And I know you've kind of already addressed or talked about what you were trying to address. Maybe, I think I want to change up the question a bit, Omar. Hopefully you're okay with that.
Go ahead, man. Yeah.
But I want to ask, how easy or hard was it to get other people involved? Did you try to get your professors involved in some of the initiatives that you were starting?
Well, when we had started Zero Food Waste, it was actually very easy to get people involved. It was literally just my dad doing these pickups where he was driving to our family friends' cobs bread, and then he was getting those dropped off to a local local charity here called the Mustard Seed. Oh, actually, the mustard seed. Everyone knows the mustard seed. There's a mustard seed. And so we were just doing those things. And we realized hey, this one connection is happening. There's a lot of other restaurants in Calgary that have excess food. There's bakeries, there's grocery stores, and there's just restaurants that often have excess food left. And so it was a big challenge because, you're calling these businesses up and you're basically being give us your excess food, and they're that's so weird. Why do you want this? And you're trying to explain that it's going to a good cause and you're really doing it, but it was challenging because we don't have a proven model, and also food security I think was less of a discussion even 5-6 years ago. It was until we did further research and realized that in many provinces there's food donation acts, which basically protect businesses, and we were pointing out very useful things hey, you don't have to throw this food away, and that means you don't have to spend money throwing food away, because throwing food away is expensive. You need someone to pick it up, you need someone to throw it away. And so it was pointing those things out to get businesses on board. And then with volunteers just started hearing about us through social media. We would post about these pickups, and honestly it was a lot of our friends. We would just kind of force them to help and support with that, and they were more than happy to. But COVID hit, and then it became a very, very big challenge. If you're struggling with food insecurity at home, or there's other things happening, and COVID was a big stressor on people's mental health, you don't really have time or capacity to sometimes volunteer. And so we kind of had to shift the way that we were approaching this issue. Yes, we were still doing food rescue with the capacity that we had, but then we started reaching out more directly to do one-time events and stuff. So one big initiative that we did that I was really especially proud of was we reached out to, do you guys have Jerusalem shawarma in Toronto? No, right? I think
No.
Okay, I'm mentioning
Maybe something close to it.
Calgary specific brands, but there's this shawarma chain called Jerusalem Shawarma. And so we reached directly out to them. And they're coming from a Muslim background too, so it's very easy to appeal to them. And also that Jerusalem Shawarma specifically, like, we were literally, our family ate there almost like every week, so they knew us by name.
That's awesome.
And so we were like, let's do something about this, and we worked with them and collaborated with them because the rates of food insecurity had spiked over COVID. And there's more people accessing food banks, there's more people accessing food resources. So we worked with them, and we did, I think, 1,000 initial food hampers. And then we also got external grants. One of them is Rising Youth. I don't think it exists anymore, but we got these external grants, and then we made like food hamper boxes so people could get food. People would have like a milk carton, they would have eggs, they would have bread. And we work with community centers across the city of Calgary to kind of get that distributed to people who need it, because the community centers know the people in their community didn't need help. But what was really surprising was when you ask for support, people come and support. And so Jerusalem Shawarma even went further than that, and further than the promise of 1,000 hampers, and they committed to doing 10,000 meals. And by basically saying that, like, anyone who walks to the store, anyone walks into the store, when you walk into any store across Jerusalem Shawarma chains, I think there's like 5 to 10 across Calgary, they will get a free meal. And then, they committed to doing up to 10,000 of those. And so by asking for support initially, there was a chain reaction of more support. And by doing that, we were covered on CTV News, and more people started volunteering. And so I think that my main takeaway basically from that experience was that when you ask, people will come, but you have to ask. Because people just don't know how to help if you don't ask.
Wow. No, that's like insane that you got that level of, like, obviously I agree, 100% agree. When you ask, you have to ask to try to get people to come, but to get that level of engagement from people, that's amazing. Yeah. Hugely impressive.
Yeah. And like, I guess expanding on even that question that you had, we expanded to like different places and not just Calgary, because food insecurity is not just a national problem, it's an international issue. And it was because, we had friends who were volunteering here in Calgary now that they were moving away for university. And so we had people who were going to the University of Alberta. We had a friend and a colleague who was going to the University of Ottawa and the University of, which one is the one in Hamilton?
McMaster?
McMaster.
Yeah.
In the University of McMaster University. And so we had friends going to these different locations, and they saw that food security was an issue. And so it was just literally an ask, like, hey, like, do you want to do something more about this? If you have time and capacity to do it, and they did. And then they asked their community, and they asked their friends, and word spread, and more people started volunteering. And so across Canada, we have, I think, over 350 volunteers who are, doing these pickups and supporting people with direct meal events too. But it was asking. And people will come when you ask, especially when it's an issue as large as food insecurity. And there's definitely been dips in the amount of capacity that people have. And so, when people start initiatives like this, or start any initiative, there will be dips, and people's capacities will change. Like, you'll get a lot of volunteers, and the next day maybe you have 0. And that's okay. You just need to just be honest and transparent with the people that you're working with, and can really communicate that, like, hey, we had more capacity now, but we don't now. So let's work together and find another solution. And people will work with you.
Yeah, that's 100%. And it's really inspirational that you started from like one place, like with your dad, and then you just like kind of took it to like now going to different like provinces and stuff. And I think like what you said about like asking really resonates with us as well, although not even close to the level of like recognition you're getting, but like just when we were starting like this club and with Advocate Health and stuff, we started the conversation on rare disease advocacy, but we really didn't know the problems in the community or like what they're facing until we
Yeah.
asked them. Like it's really when we started doing like conversations, calls, even just like quick stuff with organizations and people who are affected, when they shared their stories, and then we got to hear like of the things they're suffering from, the barriers, and like how conversations are just not happening with regards to their health and stuff.
Yeah.
That opened the door for us to understand what collaboration really means. So for when it comes to food insecurity, I can imagine it's like the demographics are like so wide and varied, right? So when you start the conversation somewhere, someone's going to get involved, and more people are going to be like, oh, there's one voice talking about it, so might as well hop on because we've been waiting for someone to have a platform. So that's really great that you actually, you know, as a team, you built a stage. I think building a stage for any initiative, that's the key. Once there's a stage, people see the stage, and then they're like, okay, now there's space for us to get on and for the crowd to kind of see you. So that makes a lot of sense, and you know, hats off to you guys for like really doing that. Definitely
No, I really loved your analogy, Omar. It definitely is like centering people with the lived experience in that space. Like, yes, I experienced food insecurity, but I don't know what severe food insecurity is like. And I don't know what different variations of food insecurity are like to different people, because everyone's experience is a little unique. They might have other challenges that are impacting their access to food too, that I might have never experienced. So it's always about centering those people. It's always about giving that space to people, and just a platform for them to be able to voice that.
100%. Yeah. And just maybe like as a message, so we know that based on our conversation so far, we understand that it's not a one size fits all solution for food insecurity. So if you had a message for any students listening or any healthcare professionals who are like, you know, right now listening, who care about the issue, but they don't know where to start, they don't know who to talk to, or they may be scared that it's just not possible for them to get to the policy level or actually get to a place where there's change, what is your advice to them? What's your recommendations?
You know what? Like, there's so many food security initiatives across Canada, and a lot have sprung up over this past 2 years as well. You're not alone in this fight. Like, you're not trying to change the world. Like, you're not one person trying to change the world. Like, even for Zero Food Waste, you know, there's 350 volunteers who are trying to change the world. And then beyond that, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are trying to make an impact and trying to do it different ways. Like, there's initiatives like here in Calgary called like Brown Baggings for Kids. And, you know, they provide free lunch programs. I think a similar program might exist in Toronto as well. But we weren't alone in this fight. And so for us and for people listening, my advice is just to reach out to those existing initiatives and basically be like, hey, like, I'm thinking, if you see a gap, like, you be honest and transparent and say, like, I see this gap. Are you guys doing anything about it? Or I'm thinking I want to do this about it. Can I get your support? Like, how do I get this off the ground? Like, we registered as a charity. So Zero Food Waste is a registered charity, but, you know, there's a whole process to that too. And we registered a charity to get access to a lot of grant funding. But even like getting volunteers, reaching out to businesses, you know, like, this model has existed before. It's not revolutionary. It's not, it's things that people have done. And so for us, it was also reaching out to some of our initiatives, other initiatives around food security, and getting that support from them. What we do now, and what I would recommend everyone to do is, you know, Zero Food Waste is part of a larger collective organizations that tackle food insecurity, from food banks to just grassroots organizations that are handing food out. And as part of the organization, we're advocating for larger policy changes too. And because there's a more larger collective voice of not only hundreds of volunteers, but also all the communities that support and represent, the government is more likely to listen. Like, one of the big things that I really want Canada to push for in policy change, just studying my Master of Public Policy and exploring this topic deeper, is we don't have a free lunch program. Like, every G7 country in one shape or form, even the US, has a lunch program, and Canada doesn't. There are kids who go hungry because they can't afford food. I know, like, when I was growing up, you know, sometimes I was that kid too. And so pushing for a national lunch program. And that's something that we can do, and it's something very tangible, and that's something that would protect a lot of little kids, you know? So you're not alone in this. If you're wanting to start an initiative like this, just connect with other people, like connect with me and reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help that get off the ground. Like we started with one city, when we reached 5 cities. We started with my dad as a volunteer, and now it's 350 volunteers. There's momentum behind food security work, and there's momentum behind any work that you do. I'm sure even for this club and this organization, that you guys had people who were more than willing to step up and contribute their time and space to be able to do that. Like Zero Food Waste has redistributed over 150,000 surplus meals now, and you guys have done countless interviews to advocate for people who have rare diseases and are not being heard.
Yeah, 100%. I think what you're saying is right. Like there, with food insecurity or food security, there are people. It's a functioning model, like you said. And yes, 100%. Anyone listening to this, if you want to get involved, please reach out to Haris. Reach out to his organization. Reach out to anyone also near you. I think that's the biggest way to start. And I definitely agree that a national lunch program or something like that would be a very good thing to start, because it would also take a lot of load off of families who have little kids who are going to school, right? Yeah. And that's maybe when you have, I don't want to use the word headache, but that's like one less stress maybe to worry about. There you can help adjust things accordingly with your finances and maybe create a better life when you're trying to move to a new country, or if you're just in Canada, especially right now, economically it's not the easiest time. So I mean, these are all amazing points. So I think, Omar, I don't know how much time we have left, or
we'll be wrapping up soon, but
right.
Feel free, keep going.
I mean, I'm not trying to go too many tangents, because I think if we do that, we'll be here for the next day, because it's a fun.
You guys are fun to talk to, so
yeah, it's a nice conversation. It's a fun conversation. It's like casual. It's a whole lot of fun. Before I ask like my next question, I will say that like I think a lot of times people don't even realize when there are food security like initiatives around them. So even like nearby neighborhood level, stuff like I've seen near grocery stores near my house, where there's a table that they put out saying like if anyone wants to leave food here for people who are facing food insecurity, they can come grab something. So just like even small things like that make a difference. So if you don't know how to start getting involved, or if you're not sure, you can take on the global initiative yourself. You can do the small stuff. But in saying all that, I mean, with all that you've done and the amazing work that you've done, what do you think is next for like you? Any new projects on the horizon, or like where do you see yourself taking Zero Food Waste in the next couple of years down the line?
Yeah, well, Zero Food Waste exists, to tackle food insecurity. I hope like one day in the very, very far, and honestly in the near future, that this isn't an issue that we have to address. But right now it is. And so for Zero Food Waste, we're just hoping to continue reaching out to local businesses, continue, starting in new cities. So if you're listening to this from a city that we're in or we aren't in, like, just reach out, because, Zero Food Waste doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can just literally be you rescuing food from one business and dropping it off. And that's all it can be, and that's okay. But we're hoping to expand to more cities. We're hoping to, contribute more and reach out to more businesses and just basically increase the amount of food that we rescue, because that translates directly into the amount of meals that are served. Food insecurity, like I mentioned earlier, correlates with a lot of different health conditions, like the higher risk of diabetes and hypertension, cardiovascular diseases. And so food security is fundamental to building our healthier and more resilient communities and achieving health equity. And it starts with nutrition. And so getting access to those nutritious and healthy meals.
100%. Yeah, like very, very valid points. And I hope your goal of the fact that this doesn't need to be an issue that's addressed more, because we reach that goal, it does come soon. Not only in Canada, not only in Calgary, but like globally, because we see it's a huge issue. But yeah, Omar.
Yeah, no. I'm just so thankful that I got to listen to this conversation, because I got to know you more. I know we're going to be meeting in the fall. I don't think I've ever mentioned in this podcast, but like we are going to Team UMed. So
I'm not. Let me clarify. I'm not joining this.
You'll be coming soon. Don't worry.
But, maybe next time, but like not this time.
but with Horace and stuff, like obviously a very brilliant young mind here. So like hopefully we can start something together. I know in Peel region there's a lot of food insecurity issues too. So hopefully we can see you doing something big in the region as well, and be happy to support that. But definitely we'll look into the future and see where we can go. I'm going to definitely look into zero food waste more, and
Yeah.
kind of just talk about that. But yeah, I think we're close to wrapping up now. So thank you so much, man, for your insights, your energy, the lived experience that you shared, even just starting from scratch. We're honored to be part of that conversation. It's been an amazing conversation, and I hope that listeners, you take a lot from this, and get a deeper understanding of what food insecurity means, how it's connected to health, and even just the aspect of justice that was, kind of underlining the whole story as well, how they're all deeply connected. And definitely take his advice and see where you can go.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, like I'll leave with like one thing, and I think this sentence is something I wished I heard earlier as well. Like, the hardest thing isn't finding the issue, because there's so many issues happening. The hardest thing is just doing one small thing about it. And if that one small thing is all that happens with it, that's okay. And if that one small thing ends after a year, that's okay, because you still help people. It doesn't have to change the world. It just has to change your local community.
Local community, yeah.
Get that on a t-shirt. I want that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Branding.
Start the branding. But no, I think it'll be great to see you guys together, Team U. Hopefully you can also bring your food waste more into the Peel region, more into Ontario when you come, because I know it's more based in Calgary, but like this way, it gets more exposure. So I would look forward to that, and wish you all the best for that. Otherwise, I think we are going to be wrapping up soon. We will try to link all of Horace's work, the organizations he's mentioned, if he wants to, his previous professors, the shawarma place in Calgary, if you're interested in going.
Good shawarma, bro. It's really good shawarma.
Apparently, it's a really good shawarma place. If you live in Calgary, even if you don't live in Calgary and you're going to Calgary, check this place out. Or go to Calgary just for this place, actually. Nothing else.
Maybe not that good.
Okay, maybe not that good.
You gotta hold him to account for the reviews.
I'm like, wait, you're like hyping this up. I don't want to hype anyone. I'm going to try it. You'd be like, never mind.
It's a good place, and they're good people. That's the important part. They're really good people.
That's what makes it
right?
good.
So that's what's amazing. Definitely, if you're going to Calgary, check them out. But otherwise, we'll list all the actual organizations and all of his work. And, everything that he said, take it to heart. Don't just listen to everything. If you're passionate about something, try to take action in it in your community. It doesn't have to be large, like he mentioned. His quote, remember that. And definitely try your best.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that wraps up this episode of the Ash Podcast, guys. If this conversation resonated with you, give us a follow, share the episode. Keep amplifying your voices that are pushing for change. That's always the goal.
Yeah. Until next time, thank you for listening. And we hope to be here again with maybe some more guests or some more new topics. But thank you for this. Thank you again, Horace. Bye.